Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing late on Thursday evening. Joining us from New York City, where he's back from Boston, where you were at that spectacular Bucks Celtics game on Wednesday night. That was an all-time classic in the Eastern Conference. 1 versus 2 came down to the final minute. Game of the year, Bontemps.
Yeah, I'd say it falls into the category basically every game between two fun teams right now, which is that there are key guys missing on both sides, and therefore we didn't get to learn anything from it, which is disappointing. But hello, everybody.
It was a okay game. I mean, it wasn't indicative of where the series would go, because Giannis didn't play, and of course, Giannis played against the Nets on Thursday night.
Thursday,
he was fine to play against the Nets, but not good for the national television game.
Yes.
But PPP is only
what are you going to do?
Loosely enforced. So whatever. Sounds fun. He had 21-9 against the Nets. They won. Joining us from Dallas, Texas, where he was at the Utah Jazz Dallas Mavericks game tonight. In fact, he's joining us from the American Airlines Center. Ben MacMahon, did you get any dunks in? Because I think everybody else in Dallas got a dunk in this game.
Howdy, partners. My dunking days are long gone. Although, actually, no, that's not true. I threw one down. Believe it or not, I threw one down Wednesday night.
Well,
I did.
This is breaking news. Now, on a 10-foot hoop?
No, it was 8 feet.
Yeah.
It was 8 feet.
Listen, you just did that piece a few weeks ago on the coaches who dunk. You're our
hey,
old man dunk specialist.
Listen, we're going to talk about one of the stars of that story here in a little bit. We'll get to that. But no, I mean, the Mavericks, I'll say this, their goal over the summer, and they followed up on it at the trade deadline, was to surround Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving with as much athleticism as possible. As Jason Kidd said, they can compete in the layup lines now. I mean, they threw down 18 dunks and look, the Jazz are obviously not very good and not motivated to win, and on a back-to-back, still 18 dunks, the second most dunks by any team in any game over the last 25 years, at least, according to ESPN stats and info, our good friends there. And probably the most spectacular.
It's all part of a conspiracy to call more fouls, and now we're not shooting threes, we're dunking. God bless America.
Well, listen, the Mavericks at one point, they ended up shooting 60% from the line, but at one point, the best defense the Jazz had was to foul the Mavericks because they were like shooting 40% through the second quarter. Most spectacular dunk, though, was a lob. Luka threw one of those where it looks like you pull the pin, just kind of throw the grenade type of passes. And to Kyrie, and Kyrie climbed the ladder, went up, caught that thing with one hand, and punched it in.
Okay, I did not see this highlight. Kyrie throwing down a lob dunk.
It's all over the socials. All over the socials.
Oh my God!
It was no joke. It was. He's had a couple. The man, he's not known as a dunker. Obviously, he's known for his below the rim crazy layup package. He's, for a fella his age and his size, he's got some spring still. But anyways, again, nice win for the Mavericks. They're on a pretty good stretch here. Gafford had 25, and the vast majority of that was on dunks. But we're not going to leap to any conclusions because they beat the tanking Jazz. Get it? Leap.
Brilliant as always. Brilliant. So we had a unfortunate moment on Thursday night, and one that we're going to have to wait and see in the next 24 hours or so how it might affect the playoff race. And it unfortunately might, because Brandon Ingram, the Pelicans were playing the Magic in a game the Magic won, which we'll talk about the Magic here in a second. He was, I don't remember if he was playing defense. Was he playing defense or offense? But he went down awkwardly in the lane, and looked like a hyperextension of his knee. But you wonder if there was any more damage. He had to be helped off. Couldn't come off under his own power. He had been having the most healthy season he'd had since he was a Pelican. He has only missed 4 games this year. And hopefully it is not a serious injury. Hopefully it's something that maybe he'll miss a little time, but won't affect his overall season, because the Pelicans, since they've gotten mostly healthy, have been such a dynamic team. You got Zion playing great. Ingram's had a strong season. I wouldn't say it's been a great season, but he's had a strong season. They obviously need him, multi-position, acts as one of their, trigger men on offense, play initiators, etc. And so right there, you wonder, they really had gotten on the heels of the Clippers. They were one game back from the Clippers in the loss column. And it's, now you sort of take that out. You're not even worried about seeding. You're worried about where they fit. And if you're a team like Dallas, who's on their heels, and you're a team like the Clippers, who's right in front of them, you see something like that, and you're like, this is very important to where the seeding could go.
Yeah, and Ingram's going to get an MRI, which, makes sense. Obviously, it's no surprise, but Willie Green confirmed that, and obviously hoping for good news coming out of that. The Mavericks are sitting in 6th place as we speak, and they've been floating, spending most of their time in that 7-8. But the Wizards, that's capital W Wizards, got a huge win tonight. Not necessarily huge for the Wizards, but huge for the Mavericks because they beat the Kings. Which, oh boy, that's the kind of
any win for the Wizards is a good win.
Well, I know, but it's huge for the Mavericks because
it's a particularly awful loss for the Kings.
Yes, it is, and that's why it's big for the Mavericks. And that's the kind of loss that the Kings might look at come seeding time and be like, "What in the bleep?" So, anyways, I think next week's time we can really kind of focus in on that bottom half of the West playoff bracket because the Mavs have that baseball series against the Kings, so there might be some crystallizing or happening there, but certainly something to keep an eye on right now.
Well, coming into today, the Mavs had a 1.5 win lead over the Kings in the projections, and that is before this result, which obviously was going to be projected as a win for the Kings. So the Kings are probably going to be projected to finish 8th after losing this game, which, a couple days ago, they were projected to finish 6th, which again just shows you how close the West is, as we've talked about a bunch, and B, like you said, how much you can really regret having a game or two like this that you have slipped the other way as we get down towards the end here with how punched up it's going to be. And obviously there's going to be a pretty big difference between being in the top 6 or being in a play-in mix where you're probably going to see Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry all in it.
Yeah, so another injury developing situation is in Cleveland. They're banged up as a team right now. We've talked about that a little bit. So Donovan Mitchell is out for a week after getting surgery on his broken nose.
Schnauzer.
And I'm sure that's uncomfortable, but the real concern with Donovan Mitchell is his knee. He had PRP. He missed 7 games, came back, and he got hit in the schnoz. He got hit in the nose when one of the 2 games when he came back, which obviously was painful, broke his nose, but the knee is not getting better. And so the Cavs have him on their injury report is out with the nasal fracture, but even if he wasn't out with the nasal fracture, from what I understand, he'd be out with this knee. He is going to need some time to let that calm down. The good news, I guess, is this is not believed to be something that would be like he'd be out for the rest of the season or anything. He doesn't need surgery, but that knee, as the Cavs have looked at it and they got it evaluated, is the PRP didn't solve the issue, and he basically needs to shut it down for quite some time. And I think the hope is that he's back before the end of the regular season. He should get back, but he's going to miss a stretch of games here. I'm trying to not get too terribly aggregated here on this because I don't even think they know. But it's not going to be just the nasal fracture, and then he's going to be back. He's going to be out a longer period than that while they try to get this knee calmed down. And so they are in 3rd, hanging on, but they're in a precarious position because it has been seen this year that they can handle a lot when it comes to injuries to their rotation. They can handle, they've handled Mobley being out a couple of different times. They've handled Garland being out. They've handled Max Strus being out. Right now, they're hurting with Dean Wade out. Dean Wade's an important player for them. He's missed 7 games with knee issues, but they can't stay above water, I don't think, without Donovan Mitchell. He's just too vitally important to them. And so they're sitting there in third place, and the team that's behind them in fourth and making a move has got to be staring at that is the Orlando Magic, who won their 5th consecutive game on Thursday night, beating the Pelicans, who've been one of the hottest teams in the league. They since January 31st, so we're talking about 6-ish weeks. They have the second best record in the NBA at 18-5. Only the Celtics have had a better record. They've got, I think they're 3rd or 4th in defense. The numbers haven't updated from tonight, but I think they're 3rd or 4th in defense in that stretch. And while they don't have a great offensive team, that is, they're not dynamic. They've shot the ball well in that stretch. They're not high up there in terms of offensive rankings, but they're shooting over 50% as a team in that stretch, which you shoot over 50% for 23 games or whatever. Even in the modern era, that's really good. They're getting better production there. And Paolo Banchero is just having a humongous season. Like, he is just putting up terrific performance after terrific performance. He obviously made the All-Star team this year in his 2nd season after winning Rookie of the Year. That, is not, making your first All-Star team is big. He had another triple-double. I think he's got 2 or 3 now. Had another triple-double on Thursday night. And they are and they've got some depth. They are to be taken notice of, because not only are they playing well, but the Cavs are susceptible. And the Cavs, for example, on Friday play the Timberwolves, and it looks like Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid, who were out against the Nuggets earlier this week, it's a decent chance of them coming back. And that game's in Minnesota. So Bontemps, the Magic are rising, and the Cavs are wavering a little bit. And I think that's we just didn't expect to see the Magic in 3 at this point. Potentially, they're not there yet. They're in 4th. But
I like how you've just ignored the fact that they're tied with the Knicks. Just skipping right over that.
Listen, we don't like to focus on those big market teams around here.
We like to focus on the Cavs, though. That is what we focus on.
Oh,
on
stop
the pod.
crying. He had a little news.
I'm just giving our guy a hard time.
No.
Oh, really?
The Knicks lost to
We're going to defend that. We're going
the
to
Knicks lost to the
Magic.
The Knicks lost to the Nuggets tonight. Their road winning streak was snapped.
Yes, they did.
Ooh.
And we still don't know what's going on with OG Anunoby either. Look, Orlando has been
Julius
healthy.
Randle.
They have Mitchell Robinson back to practice, which is a good thing for them. But yeah, look, Orlando's got one of the easiest schedules in the league coming in. They're relatively healthy. You mentioned how Paolo has played. It's been an interesting season for him. Certainly, there are some things you can point to in terms of his efficiency that are questionable going forward. But given the lack of offensive options you've got around him, he's really carried them. And yeah, I mean, as it sits right now, with the injuries that Cleveland has, with the injuries that New York has, Orlando is going to be sitting there probably, if you had to guess on the odds, they're probably going to end up in the 3. And, certainly being on the opposite side of the bracket from Boston is appealing. And, on the other hand, if you're Miami and Philly, if you can get out of that play-in mix, not only are you not in the play-in, but no disrespect to Orlando, if you have a choice between playing Orlando, Milwaukee, or Boston in the first round, I think it's safe to say that both of those teams, I'm sure, would pick Orlando first in that
Why don't you
draft.
like his efficiency? Because he doesn't shoot that many threes?
Without getting too far into it, there's some advanced stats that basically lay out how many points you should score in terms of the shot profile you have. And Paolo was near the bottom of the league in some of those stats categories. But it also, A, he's a very young player, and B, he's also being asked to carry a very heavy load for a team that doesn't have a lot of offensive creation around him. So that's where I'd say I'm not saying it's a 100% one-to-one thing, but he's had a really good year, and he's a very interesting player, obviously, going forward for them.
Well, the analytics, there's a lot of like Paolo is not an analytics all-star. Like even his all-star case,
No.
if you just looked at analytics, the advanced stats aren't kind to him, but you know what? Obviously the guy is a major talent. And as you just said, Bontemps, you're talking about a second-year guy who is the face of a franchise that has made a massive leap. I mean, this is a team. They're still a rebuilding team. They're still I mean, look at
They've also not won a playoff series since Dwight Howard was on the team.
Right. Look, I mean, they're building
ago.
around a bunch of guys on rookie contracts, and you know, we talk a lot, or people who talk about the Magic, we don't necessarily talk a lot about Banchero, but the folks in the Magic tends to be Banchero, Franz Wagner. Jalen Suggs is having a hell of a year.
Should be an all defense guard.
Absolutely. I was going to say, you talked to Jamal Mosley about him, and Mosley is the guy, coach I was referring to as one of the stars of my dunk story, who we're going to get to Mosley in a minute. I talked to Mosley earlier this year about Suggs, and he said, hey, he is a Marcus Smart, Gary Payton type of defender. The man, those are the last two guards to win Defensive Player of the Year. And that's the category of defender that he's putting him in. And if you watch him, it's not hyperbole. And Smart is shooting the three at 40% this year.
Suggs.
At 40% this year.
Marcus would love to shoot 40% from three.
Oh, yeah, Mom. He's shooting.
He shoots them like he shoots 40% from three.
No way. He's shooting 100% when his fingers pointed that direction,
Yeah.
but then he hadn't been able to play since then because his fingers pointed that direction. No, anyways, Suggs is shooting the three at 40% this year on more than 5 attempts per game.
Yeah, 5.2.
That is such a huge, huge thing because, you know, honestly, for a lot of his time since he got drafted and got what was he, 4th or 5th overall, but a top 5 pick.
5th pick. Yep.
I mean, there were times when he was borderline unplayable because he was such a bad offensive player. You know, it's not like he's some prolific scorer now, but he's not a guy who's killing your spacing. And again, you're talking about very short list, one of the most impactful defensive guards in the NBA who's really developed significantly on the offensive end so that he's not a you know, real liability there. And look, let's talk about Mosley. I just mentioned how young the Magic are. You know, all their building blocks are basically rookie contract guys. To be able to get, you know, offense first lottery picks like Paolo Banchero, like Franz Wagner, to buy in as much as they have on the defensive end, that's coaching. Coaching is not just X's and O's. I mean, I think buy-in might be more important than the X's and O's. Honestly, it's kind of crazy that Mosley's in the last year of his contract and just over the last whatever it was, week or two, got an extension. Like, hey, I'll say this: he at least had some leverage.
Do you have a team option? Or was he actually up?
I thought I might be mistaken. Don't aggregate me on that one. I thought he was in the last year of his contract. Point being, he earned that extension.
Sure did.
He took over a total tear down type of rebuild. Nobody thought the Magic would be competing for home court advantage in the first round. Frankly, not this year, not next year. They are way, way, way ahead of schedule. And, you know, when I was working on that dunk story, one of the scenes that really kind of got me wanting to do the story and I focused on in there was the Mexico City practice they had, and their social media team put the video out there where the guys were hyping Mosley up. Come on, you got to get us one. And he grabs the ball at half court and takes a dribble, and then he walked. Oh my gosh, just a blatant travel.
Wow.
12 choppy
we're going to
steps.
give him a pass on that.
And then, well, there were no refs there. He got away with it. And then he goes up and he just squeaked it over, and the team went crazy. And I remember talking to Franz about it, and he said, "Look, man, that kind of captures what Mose brings to this team. Just how much how much guys love playing for him, how much fun guys have in their gym." And again, I think culture, buy-in, all these things to me are at least as important as X's and O's, and Mosley has done an outstanding job there.
I spent some time with him.
Steve Kerr's never going to be considered the greatest X's and O coach of all time. The reason he's won as much as he has is because of all of the EQ stuff that's off the court. I mean, he's obviously done some very good X's and O's work, but that Greg Popovich is a similar way. I mean, we've seen as time has gone on. Like, Pop is not necessarily the best X's and O's guy, but he knew when to push the buttons and how to, and that was a big part of what drove the success in both San Antonio and Golden State for such a long time. And to your point, Jamal's got a young team, even when they've had injuries, even when they've been losing, that team has played super hard, been super engaged. Anybody who's watched them has noticed that, opposing teams, scouts, coaches, etc. And they're a fun team to watch, and it's been a really cool story. And now they've got a chance to do, like you said, if they'd just been in the play-in this year, that would have been seen as a successful season.
Yes.
For them to be maybe the 3 seed, even if they end up as 4 or 5 and they don't get that high, this is all gravy at this point. It's been very cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I spent some time with Jamal last summer. He was with Team USA, doing some work with Team USA. And he was talking about how excited he was about the team, which is, I guess, every coach has to say in July or August. And I was like, well, your biggest acquisition was signing Joe Ingles. Like, that's not going to move the needle. And,
hey, Mosley has more dunks than Ingles this year.
I believe that. I haven't checked in that, but I believe that.
Oh, I did. It's a fact.
Okay. All right. They drafted Anthony Black, who, great size guy late in the lottery or mid lottery, I guess. And, but they had all these guards on the roster. So I was like, I don't know where he's fitting. So, like,
by the way, they think Anthony Black, most thinks Black is going to be an awesome defensive player too.
Yeah, well, he has, I don't know what his wingspan is, but he's like 6'7" ish.
Yeah.
He's very raw, but the potential for him and Suggs going forward as a defensive combo is pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I just wasn't like, let's be honest. I was eating my omelet and nodding and saying, "Oh yeah, it's going to be great."
Well, and the interesting thing about their season is Franz Wagner has really been a little bit of a disappointment. He's shooting under 30% from 3.
Yeah.
We've talked a bunch about him on the pod. Obviously, he helped Germany win the World Cup gold medal last summer. He's a super intriguing young forward, and like the fact that they're doing what they're doing with him, not playing badly, but not playing to quite the level
not shooting it well. When you say when he's been a disappointment, the only thing he hadn't shot it well.
Because it hasn't been a perfect season for them or for their second best player, and they're still in this spot. It just shows that they've got some potential, even more upside than what they've got right now, because they've got some guys who could be playing better than they are, and they're still in the position they are.
But what happens when a lot of young, like lottery type talents who have had success in the league? What happens usually when a guy like that doesn't shoot it well? Right? He mopes. You see it all the time. He mopes. He half-asses it on the defensive end. He's on the defensive end thinking, "What's my shooting percentage tonight?" And again, the thing, and this gets back to the culture and all that. Like you ask Mosley about Franz. And, you can ask him like, what, he's not shot well. And he's like, dude, this guy is bought in on defense. You see how hard he's playing. You see, all he cares about is winning. So again, to me, Franz is a great example of why they're having success, because he's created a team of guys who care about the stuff that matters and understand that they're, yes, you want to shoot the 3 well, obviously, but you can't let that determine, your approach and kind of how you show up in every other facet of the game, which is a lot easier said than done.
By the way, speaking of Franz Wagner, we talked in the last pod about, there being some difficult decisions to make on some of these third-year guys that you would have just given the fun max to without thinking in the last CBA, and now it's a little harder. Wagner's numbers are excellent, terrific size.
Mhm.
Exactly the type of guy you want with your team. Can play multiple positions. He's extension eligible this summer, and I'm sure they'll try to get something done. Is that in a different, 2-3 years ago, I think that's fun max zone. Just, I don't know on that. I mean,
I'll say this. If I'm Franz and you're not fun maxing me, I think we might just play things out. He's still averaging 20 points per game for a good team, with playmaking skills and contributing on a
Magic's
very good defense.
The Magic's cap is pretty clean, but it's just one of these things. Like, maybe it is a no-brainer. Maybe you do it, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
you have to retrofit your viewpoint. You just can't have guys on max contracts that.
So you're gonna have to come up with a different nickname for it if it ain't just the fun max.
No, it's still the fun max. It's still the fun max.
Apparently it ain't. If Franz can't get one, it ain't that fun.
Well, even if he does get one, it's still fun because everybody's happy, and he's young and he's only 25% of the cap, and
Suggs extension eligible too. Not that he'd be in that range, but again, I think he's positioned himself to be a candidate for a pretty nice contract.
Well, look, Paolo is getting the fun max. He's headed for that.
Yeah.
So
now.
So you have to calculate.
I would assume that Franz will be getting the max. I would have him getting the max ahead of most of the guys that we've talked about. Evan Mobley, these other guys in this class that we've talked about potentially getting it. And
Evan Mobley and Jalen Johnson were the two guys we talked about the other day, who I think 2-3 years ago done by July 5th. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe by July 5th, they'll both be done this summer, but I
tell you what,
though
an interesting one's going to be Kuminga.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's going to be, and Jalen Green for that matter. Both guys who midway through this year.
I don't think Jalen Green's a serious candidate for it, but.
Well, I'm telling you what, he's becoming more serious every time the Rockets play.
Because as I said the other day, I would guess this month has just increased the chances of Jalen Green not getting extended, and everyone will just go in next season and see if he can replicate what he's doing. And I would say it's probably going to be a similar deal for Jonathan Kuminga because of how he has played this year. He's a very confident guy. I will assume he would want the max. I would not be giving him the max now. And I assume Golden State will just let it play out. And if he plays great again next year, then he gets the max and that's fine. But the one thing about Orlando, you mentioned both Suggs and Franz being extension eligible. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Paolo coming up the next year. They have been pretty conservative in how they have operated in general. They've basically just drafted players for a while, not really done a lot else to add to the team. You mentioned signing the guys like Joe Ingles here and there. This is sort of the last summer they can really go out and make some significant moves outside the team to bring in players, assuming they do extend. Jalen and Franz, who I think we all agree will likely be with the team, or not likely will be with the team long term. So they are a team to watch this summer. Obviously, no income tax state in Florida. Young, exciting team. I've been in their facility. We checked it out during the G League Showcase. They have an incredible practice facility right next to the arena. They got a lot of stuff to sell there. It's going to be interesting to see if they go out and do something like what Houston did last summer, getting Fred VanVleet, getting Dillon Brooks. Do they go out and add some veteran talent to this young team and put themselves in a position to be maybe a team that everyone expects to be in the top 3 or 4 next year in the West or in the East, instead of just being one that, obviously took a big step forward and surprised everybody.
By the way, Jalen Green, 26 points on Thursday night as the Rockets won their 7th consecutive game, beating the Bulls.
Big win.
You know what else happened in that game? Dillon Brooks got tossed. Dillon Brooks got booted along with DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, I haven't seen the actual video, but
Well, DeMar was having a very tough night. I didn't watch any of the game, but he was 4 of 15 shooting when he got ejected. Makes me wonder if he was getting a little salty about the way he was.
You know what I'm salty about? For some reason, I can no longer watch Rockets games on my phone on the League Pass. Get it fine at home on the
League Pass.
You can bet on it though.
Get the IT department on that. Get her to figure it out.
Because I was trying, I'm at the Mavs Jazz tonight, and there are points when it wasn't the most compelling game in the world. I'm wanting to watch some other stuff and wanted to check out little Bulls Rockets, red hot Houston Rockets, and damn Adam Silver. I mean, hook a brother up. I used to be able to do that. I don't know why I can't anymore. Doesn't seem fair.
Well, before you blame the NBA, I think a fuller investigation of your technology needs to be.
No, I watch. Trust me, I watch plenty every other game.
Was there somebody else on press row who could have looked at there just to make sure? Because I would have liked to have a second source on this.
You know who I sit next to? Dwayne Price. You know Dwayne Price?
Do I know Dwayne Price? I've been covering the NBA for 20 plus years.
Dwayne Price has been covering his league since the ABA. Dwayne Price doesn't. I mean, he can barely turn his phone on. Although you look over there, he's so old. His texts are like billboard size letters. Dwayne can't help me with any damn IT stuff. He's 97 years old.
Dwayne has one of the
largest. We all love Dwayne Price.
Dwayne has one of the largest shoe budgets and I don't mean for sneakers.
Oh, listen, no. Here's a development. I have been a positive influence on Dwayne now because he goes, what's that store in Atlanta where a bunch of the players?
I don't remember the name of it, but Shaq claims to have spent more than $1 million at that store.
Yeah, well, Dwayne, whatever.
Jackson, Google the shoe store in Atlanta.
Dwayne has a ton of shoes from there, but
all alligators and whatnot.
You know what Dwayne wore tonight?
Jordans.
Sweet pair of gray Chucks.
Oh, look at you!
He's been.
Well, that would help his. That would help his budget because he wears some beautiful shoes.
Chucks are beautiful shoes, sir.
I didn't think we're gonna have a Dwayne Price update on the pod. This is fun territory.
And if he had any idea how to find a podcast, he'd be thrilled by this. But again, he has no IT.
I'll just tell you, for the less 0.5% of people who know Dwayne Price are listening, I was with him like 15 years ago. We were at a place and someone came up and asked for Mr. Gervin. Could I have a photo? Mistaken.
That's great.
He's about 6'6", and again covered the ABA. Dwayne claims he can still dunk. He's lying. Anyways,
at the opposite end, at the younger end of the NBA spectrum, there was some news today. Not really surprising because Adam Silver completely slayed it during the All-Star when he got asked about how the G League Ignite was performing this year. I don't even know what their most recent record is.
It is very bad. But their season ended.
Last time I looked,
the program ended at the All-Star game when he just announced, I don't know how this is going to go going forward.
Well, I thought it was a bad sign when, so there's this South Sudanese player who's going to Duke, Kaman Maluak, 7'3", and this guy, he's raw. I got a chance to meet him in Manila last year and watch him play. He's raw, but he's one of these guys who, in the era of Wemby and Chet Holmgren, you look at a player like this and say, oh my God, can we develop another one? And he is a huge success story for the NBA Academy in Senegal. They got him early, have been developing him there. He's turned into one of the best prospects to come out of Africa. And when he was choosing his college choice, it won the G League Ignite. He chose, and like, this is what the NBA, the whole system was set up to be. It was, we're gonna find players, we're gonna develop them, and then we're gonna give them this great opportunity. Now, by the way, Jackson looked it up. They're 2 and They're still playing
Two-
some games, right? They're
I just
2 and
looked
I
it up.
28.
believe I believe the record's even worse than 2-28 because the season is split into a couple segments. But
Right, that doesn't count the
it's
showcase, but
yeah,
but
the
2-28.
the record's bad.
Hey, 2-28, you know what that is? 0.067, which I would call a legal breathalyzer reading. However, since most of the players are not of drinking age, it would still be illegal. But yeah, that stinks.
Yeah. Now they had some. I mean, we just talked about Kuminga and Jalen Green. Those are 2 guys that were on the Ignite.
Yeah, and guess what? It took until midway through their 3rd year before they were really. I mean, Jalen Green was obviously playing, but it took until midway through their 3rd year before they were quality NBA players. That's like the G League Ignite. I loved the idea. I thought it was a great idea. I was all in favor of it, but it's been a failure. It has not been a good developmental environment. I mean, Scoot Henderson spent 2 years there, and as a number 3 overall pick, he is a project. He is raw.
Well, most point guards are raw coming in the league. Scoot has not quite had the year I would have expected, but here's the real deal with the G League Ignite. They have had some success stories. They've had several players drafted in the lottery. We just mentioned 3 of them. The real thing is the NBA created the G League Ignite to be what NIL has become in the NCAA over the past 5 years. And when the G League Ignite began, it was the idea of, hey, we don't have high school players eligible to come into the draft. Here's a way where we can provide money to these players. They can then play in the G League. We can get a chance to have them in an NBA type environment, and then they can be drafted the following year. Well, within a couple of years of starting the G League Ignite, the world caught up with the NCAA, as we all know. Now NIL is all over the NCAA. These kids can go to college and make all sorts of money with NIL opportunities. And therefore, the thing that the G League Ignite was created for essentially became irrelevant. And now the NBA has this developmental program that's costing it several $1 million a year, maybe more than that. And as we know, part of the reason the league got rid of the high school to pro draft model in the first place was so that you're farming out some of the developmental time to the colleges, and therefore you don't have to have guys going to watch players playing in random high school gyms and all this other stuff. Now you go back right to that. You get rid of the Ignite. The league saves a ton of money, which it's happy to do. And you have all these top prospects going to play in college for a year and then coming into the league, and they're getting money the whole time anyway. So whether the G League Ignite was being a successful model from a draft and development standpoint, whether you want to argue it is or not, I think the advent of NIL basically declared that this thing was going to be going away at some point anyway. And the fact that the team has been struggling and they have 7 or 8 draft eligible guys, they probably have too many this year, frankly, not enough. It's made for a bit of an awkward roster. The fact that the team has been set up this way, it gives the NBA sort of a convenient excuse now to save a bunch of money and get rid of it. But the real thing,
something else happened too. Something else happened. And this wasn't maybe the major thing, but there was some belief when they started this that they might lower the age limit. And so the Ignite would actually be an option for 17-year-olds, which they did take some 17-year-olds, as you mentioned. And that's, also the operation in Atlanta, Overtime Elite. They're taking guys for a couple of years. Well, the new CBA got done, and that rule didn't get touched. You're still going to be that gap year, at least 1 year for college.
Which means it isn't for the rest of the decade.
At least, exactly. So there wasn't even going to be that sort of, because I've been to Overtime Elite. There's been many stories written around it, but there is a school associated with Overtime Elite. There is high school type classes being taught there, and so that was one thing that the Ignite could have offered. That also is out the window. So, but yeah, I mean, Adam Silver had to know that. The decision was probably made quite some time even before he said that.
Right.
So, arguably the legacy of the Ignite. Now, I'm sure they would say, well, the legacy is Jalen Green, Kuminga, Scoot, etc. They also had Dyson Daniels as another lottery pick who was taken.
Another guy who's extremely raw and needs a lot of development.
Right. He's not getting much time. He was playing a little bit earlier when they were really
hurt. He's hurt now, but by the way, has talent, 6'8", and can guard.
Yeah.
But raw.
But anyway, maybe the moment of the Ignite's run was when they played Wembanyama and the Mets 92 team in Vegas before last season. They played those two games and they split them. They actually beat Mets 92 in the first game. And it was an incredible display. I mean, Victor, I think the one game had 6 or 7 threes and he had this back and forth with Scoot. And what I loved about it and what we really now know about Victor, but we're still learning about him, is just the willingness of those two guys to play with each other, like to say, okay, let's face off. I mean, you got guys purposely trying to prevent themselves from, from being like exposed in any way. Like Victor Wembanyama was going to be the number 1 pick no matter what. Why come over to the US, fly, 10 or 11 hours, crazy time zone, play a style that you're not familiar with. They were playing, NBA-esque rules with NBA D League, G League refs.
Yep.
And that was an amazing event that got put together and was completely, it blew everyone's expectations out. And like, if you had watched that, you'd been like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. But it never really improved from there.
Yeah. Totally like I said, I like the idea. It didn't pan out. I don't think players benefited from the G League Ignite experience. And now they can go places like Kentucky, get paid a ton of money, and get spanked in the first round of March Madness.
Right. Yeah. My
By
wife.
the way, what a terrible night for De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. They lose to the freaking capital W Wizards, and they come out of the game and check their phones and see that their alma mater got beat by Oakland. By the way, that's Oakland in Michigan.
Yeah. I watched it. My wife, I don't do a bracket. My wife had Kentucky in the Final Four. She might even have them in the championship game. I don't know why, but a lot of brackets were busted on that. But a terrific performance by Oakland. It was one of those classic NCAA games where they just made the plays they had to make. And there was a guy who made 10 threes in the game. I can't remember his name. He begins with a G. Sorry.
Shout out to LeBron's high school coach, Keith Dambrot, by the way, coaching the Atlantic 10 now to Duquesne Dukes, won their first NCAA tournament game in 55 years today. Beat BYU.
Is he retiring at the end of the season?
He is retiring at the end of the season. And I believe LeBron's high school teammate, Drew Joyce, will be taking over for Keith as the coach of the Dukes.
Oh, really?
They are here in Omaha, and I am looking forward to going and seeing them tomorrow on their off day on Friday.
You're going to go to a game?
My wife wants to go. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Come on, dude. Are you serious? A guy you covered 20 some odd years ago.
25.
In his
25 years ago.
In his last season, pulled off an upset.
Could be his last game.
Playing in the second round of the freaking tournament in your backyard. And what are you going to do? You're going to freaking watch golf? Come on, man.
No, I'm not going to watch golf. I'll watch him. I just don't know if I'm going to go. But
you are going to that game. This is ridiculous. If you don't go to that game, Bontemps and I are boycotting this podcast. You're going to that game. And actually, or if you do go to the game, we're boycotting, whichever one you would prefer.
Well, Keith, he is not afraid to. But he's a very intense guy, and he was very intense with LeBron, and LeBron didn't like it when he was 14, 15 years old. But there's a lot of respect now. But yeah, to go to a place that hadn't been to they hadn't been to the tournament in 46 years. I didn't know.
Hadn't been to the tournament since 77. Hadn't won a game since 69.
So you have to go to that game. Are you honestly? I'm disappointed he didn't go today. Now that I know all
Well,
these things.
I was flying back from LA. I mean,
Oh
the game
wow,
was
you were just jet setting. You're
the
just so
game
big
was first
time.
out of the gate, but
By the way, you tweeted a nice little congratulations thing. But one thing that shocked me in that tweet, you mentioned meeting him 25 years ago when there was a 6 foot 14-year-old on his team named LeBron. LeBron was only 6 feet tall when he was 14.
yeah, and he actually, I
6 feet
mean,
tall is 14. Is
No,
pretty tall, man.
not for a guy who ends up being 6'8" or 6'9". It's not.
so at the beginning of his freshman season, he was 6 foot 6'1". I don't exactly know, and he grew 2 or 3 inches during the season. By the end of the season, he was 6'3" ish, something like that. And you know, 20 they went 27-0. It was a miracle. It was absolutely unbelievable to watch this guy play. In the Drew Joyce, who was, I guess, going to be, I hadn't seen that he was going to be named the head coach in Duquesne. I know that's what Keith wanted. Drew Joyce was the reason that LeBron went to St. Vincent-St. Mary, because Drew was 5 foot. I don't mean he was 5'5", and I'm um, rounding down to have fun. Drew was 5 feet tall.
Playing varsity basketball?
And it was in the era of the long shorts. So the shorts were down to his ankles. It looked like,
Yes.
that famous photo of
it's the same Bonaventure guy, right?
The
photo of the baggy shorts.
Yes, Marcus Green.
Yes,
Marcus
that's basically what it looked like. And the public school where they were going to go, which was sort of the basketball power in Akron at the time, the coach, I don't know exactly what he said. I don't want to, but he was like, I don't think, Drew, I don't think you can play for me right away. You're going to have to grow. And Drew felt he should get an opportunity. And so he said, I'm going to go over here and play for Keith Dambrot, because Keith had seen him play and said, I'll put you on varsity, which is the greatest decision Keith Dambrot ever made.
Yeah, no
because
doubt.
LeBron wanted to be with Drew. And I mean, I remember this game. It was their first game. I was at it, and Drew is 5 foot tall. And he didn't start. He comes to check into the game, and you're like, what's going on? Somebody literally let a fifth grader, a sixth grader in to check in. And of course, the other team is like trying not to laugh, right? I mean, it's one thing to see him in the layup line. Okay. Some kid up from the freshman team or whatever. He was the first guy off the bench, 5 foot tall. And the first possession, of course, they went at him. And the guy took like a 15-footer, and Drew did the only thing he could do, which is he put his hand in the guy's face. He missed the shot. Drew came down. LeBron had the ball. And what is LeBron going to do? LeBron sends the ball to the corner to the 5-foot kid, who in the first 20 seconds of his high school career takes a corner three and hits it. And I was like, oh, I see. Fast forward to the state championship game. I've told this story before, but it's one of my favorite memories in all of basketball I've ever seen in my life. State championship game. This is not when LeBron has been the cover of Sports Illustrated. He is generally an unknown. Okay.
He'd been on the cover of the Akron Beacon Journal, but still
a few times. But I was a part-timer at the Akron Beacon Journal. That's why I was at the game. And my bosses were giving me crap because they felt like I was trying to get coverage for my alma mater. When I was saying we should be paying more attention to this team. And they were like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get us to pay attention to them because you went there? I mean, they didn't. I was 21 years old.
It's like Bontemps thinks you do with the Cavs, but go on.
Yeah. So anyway.
He does that with the Cavs. He wasn't doing it with LeBron at the time.
Story time.
I think my record will stand on its own. So in the state championship game, LeBron had made a play, which he had 3 fouls. 5 fouls in high school, obviously.
Yeah.
He had 3 fouls in the third quarter, and there's a turnover. I think maybe it was even his turnover, and the other team's going. It's a close game. It's a 1 or 2 possession game. The kid from the other team is going up for a free layup, a pick 6, and LeBron comes from behind him and blocks the ball off the backboard
That
again
sounds
as a
familiar.
15-year-old.
Yeah.
Gets the rebound, comes down, hits a three. Like jaws dropped. It was like, what the hell did we just see? Like that play was like, okay. So little Drew though goes 7 of 7 on threes at Ohio State Schottenstein Center. I think it was a Schottenstein Center. Whatever. At Ohio State in front of 15,000 people, 5 foot tall. Nobody knows who these guys are. He goes 7 of 7 on threes. And the 6th 3-pointer, he was 6 of 6. And now the team is pushing the lead out. Now they got to like a 10, 12 point lead. And LeBron is on his way to like 25 points. He's 6 of 6. The crowd is mostly just casuals that don't have a rooting interest. There's, people from each school, but these are small schools. There's maybe 500 fans from each school. There's 10,000 fans that just come to watch the state tournament. LeBron's got the ball. He's dominating the game. People are figuring this out. He drives into the lane. They collapse on him. Ball goes to the corner to Drew, who is 6 of 6 on 3. Ball goes in the air from the corner. Buzzer for the third quarter sounds while the ball's in the air. Bam, to go 7 of 7. The crowd is falling into the aisles because a 5-foot kid is having the moment they've never seen before. He's 7 of 7 on threes. LeBron goes over and picks him up. His legs are at LeBron's knees. It looks like, and it ran in the paper the next day. It's a forgotten photo. It's an iconic photo. He's holding him. His legs are dangling at LeBron's knees. And the headline on that said, "He's not heavy. He's my 3-point shooter." I can still remember that headline. So we fast forward 25 years later. By the way, Drew went on to be an all-conference player in the Mid-American Conference for Keith Dambrot at the University of Akron. Played like 12 or 14 years in Europe, had like a long career, and now is going to be the head coach at Duquesne.
Doesn't seem like it's definitively done at Duquesne, but certainly
I have a hard time believing
like
that they're not going to, because Keith, when they won the other day, he announced the day after selection Sunday that he was going to retire.
Yeah, he made it very clear he wants him to be the coach, and I suspect he's going to be the coach.
I tell you what, you know what else he is? He's a Cojones Factor Award winner based on that story. I mean, it is 25 years late, but somebody got to get him a Cojones Factor Award.
I can still remember, in the timeout between the third and fourth quarter, the ribbon boards, at Ohio State said Joyce threes, 7 for 7.
Tell you what,
and I mean,
I'm fired up, man. I'm about to check flights to Omaha. Let's go to Duquesne.
And I'll bet
what's their mascot? What's their nickname?
The Dukes.
The Dukes.
Let's go Dukes. Not Duke. Everybody got to root against Duke. That's like part of March. Let's go Dukes.
Duke is here in New York City on Friday.
So Duquesne, send me some free gear, baby. I want a rep.
So for Drew, who was 5 foot in 1999, to have this incredible career in basketball and they celebrate this. He came to when LeBron broke the scoring record last year in LA. They had a game like the next day. He, somewhere on the East Coast, obviously they're in the A10, and he flew out to see LeBron break the scoring record, and then got on a red eye and went back. Wow. And I remember seeing him going, "What time's the game tomorrow?" So it's just awesome for them to have this moment. And, LeBron sent them shoes.
Yeah,
LeBron sent support for them. So,
dude, you've got to go to the game. Are you kidding me?
Well, listen, I've known these guys for 25 years. I mean, I've been at many, many, many moments on it. I don't.
You haven't been to their second round NCAA game. That might be the coach's last game of his career.
I'm going to go see them tomorrow, and I
go to the game.
I send them messages.
Messages. They don't care about your messages. They care if you go to the game. Go to the game. Give me a break. This is ridiculous.
Anyway. That was
go to the game. Bring me back a XXL T-shirt. Damn it. Man, I'm fired up now. I'm rooting for Duquesne. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. So
hey, I got a question really important. How tall is Drew Joyce now?
Oh, he's like over 6 foot. He's taller than me.
Okay, so he can,
No,
he can coach, he
had
can
his
ref, he can
had his
play, he can do whatever he wants in basketball.
Yeah, he had his
There
growth
it
spurt.
is.
Yeah, he had his
There
growth
it is.
spurt, and my guess is he could still shoot over 40% on threes, probably in an international league. He ended up being an excellent player, but it was just, I promise you, nobody who was at that game. The other thing is that once LeBron got older, there was a whole layer of people who didn't like him. They didn't like that he
Sure.
had a Hummer. They didn't like that he wore, throwback jerseys. That's what happens in our society. But then it was a purity. There were these
Right.
14, 15-year-old kids that like were doing it out. And so that's a real positive memory. I wish that the stuff was available on YouTube. The game was on TV, but it was just a little bit before that era. I've looked for it. Maybe it's somewhere, maybe somebody will find it and put it in the comments underneath and somebody will see it. But that was just, it's such an amazing memory. And I guarantee it's one of LeBron's top memories too. So, they ended up making a movie. There's a movie about these guys. Obviously, there was a documentary that was made that talks about their, what happened when they were juniors and then seniors. And, they made a feature film about it or TV series or whatever. But I'm talking about when they were truly like not even shaving.
Right.
So that's what people were all like, oh, well, when LeBron came in the league, they're like, this guy's actually 23, let's see his birth certificate. And I would just say, yes, by the time he was 18, he was an absolute beast. But when he was 14, he actually looked 14. He had big feet. Yeah. So, he was going to keep growing. But I just remember that night. So that night, it was the first time I ever watched them play. Keith had only been the coach for 2 years, and I had not met him before, but he had been a head coach in college. He had lost
no longer, you weren't wealthy enough at that point to be a big time booster for St. Vincent-St. Mary.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of big time boosters from St. Vincent-St. Mary who have given lots of money, who have the gym named after them. But
you have the library?
I have nothing. I went over to interview him after the game, the coach after the game, and he says to me, and again, he coached at Central Michigan in the Mid-American Conference. So I realize that's not coaching at Duke, but he wasn't coaching at the YMCA. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, number 32, because that's what LeBron wore as a freshman. Whenever you see, it's whenever you go to games and you see people wearing St. Vincent-St. Mary 23 jerseys, those are cool. The real ones know that he actually wore 32 because they had even numbered jerseys. They used to have to wear the jerseys for like 5-6 years, and they had all even numbers. That was all that was available. By the time he was a senior, they had 17 different sets of uniforms. They wore a different uniform every game. He said to me, number 32 is the best player I've ever seen. He's going to be one of the greatest players ever. This is the first night I met him.
So he's the best player he'd ever, he meant like college, whatever.
It was the best player he'd ever seen.
Wow.
He said that about a 14-year-old.
Well.
And he said, and of course, my questions to him as a reporter on the game, I didn't come there because of LeBron James. I came there because it was the opening night of high school basketball. I said, well, what about this 5-foot kid who is barely, got his, shorts above his high tops? And he's like, that kid is awesome. He's going to be one of our most important players. Now, he did come off the bench. It wasn't like he was leading the team in minutes, right. But still, 3 months later, he scores 21 points in the state championship game. So I will give Keith Dambrot credit. He was saying it on the record to somebody he didn't even know. It wasn't even like he was saying it knowing I was probably going to quote him in the paper. So anyway.
Tell you what, man, this has been an outstanding edition of Storytime with Wendy. I'm glad I inquired about the heights listed on your tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Now he's just got to not big time his old pals. And
I
go to
mean,
the game.
honestly,
I'm not big time.
seriously, if you don't
this
go,
is
we're going to
an
have
ultimate
issues.
big time. This is
If
an ultimate
you-
big time
If
situation.
you don't go to that
come.
game, we really.
I don't know.
tell you
I
what,
don't know
you-
if I could be bothered going to
you
the
want me
game
to
in my
see
It's not about being
backyard.
bothered. It's
Hey,
not about being
Then
bothered.
what is it? Then what is it?
No, we're boycotting the damn Rubber Ducks bobblehead if you don't go to that game. I'm gonna tell the Rubber Ducks to cancel it if you don't go.
Listen, I got to say, how about Akron St. Vincent-St. Mary High School? Because
All
LeBron,
right.
obviously. How about Keith Dambrot, Drew Joyce, Brandon Weems, who's on that team, who is an executive in the Cavs front office. Am I allowed to talk about the Cavs? Bontemps?
You are. You are.
Malachi Branham, who's on the Spurs. Not bad, right?
Ryan Windhorst. I mean, come on.
Up, we had there was some other NBA players, a couple other NBA players come out of there. I know it's not, McClymonds High School in Oakland, which had multiple Hall of Famers in a 4 or 5 year span. Anyway, yeah. So it was obviously terrific to watch Keith Dambrot have that experience, and
It'll be even better to see it in person on Saturday.
Seriously.
yeah. Yes, and it's just. I was already Selection Sunday. I was already in Los Angeles to work this week, and then not only do they get placed in Omaha, but they get the first game out of the chute. So I didn't have a chance to go to.
Sure. So now you can go on Saturday.
Yeah, sure. You have a chance. Double XL T-shirt, baby.
Oh,
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this.
We got the tip. We got the tip times here, right here. We got Omaha, got Duquesne, Illinois, 8:40 Eastern time, 7:40 Central time.
Oh yeah.
Have a nice little dinner beforehand. Watch
There
the
you
game.
go. Absolutely.
Take Dane.
Oh yeah.
Be great.
By the way, Dane, thank you to the Wizards. Dane got a special gift from Corey Kispert.
I was going to say, I didn't want to spoil it, but Dane can wear his Corey Kispert jersey and go out there.
Thank you to the Wizards and Corey Kispert. He's now got a he's got to be the only guy in Omaha with a Corey Kispert authentic jersey, right?
I would think so.
So, but that's the thing. He doesn't play. I'm the guy who plays with the Wizards. He plays against the Wizards because he wants
You
to
don't
win.
need the jersey.
Listen,
Boehner needs the jersey.
That's
He loves it.
details.
All right. Well, go Duquesne Dukes and go Keith Dambrot, and we're all proud of you from Akron. And next podcast we'll get back to full-time NBA discussion. So thank you to Bontemps, thank you to MacMahon, thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you for listening and watching. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios, amigos.